As we near the end of our study on the four tissues of the human body, I would like to take time to address two issues. 1. How do the four tissues of the human body respond to injury? And 2. How does aging impact these tissues? In Module 4.8, we address the first question, namely, the response of tissues to injury. Let's begin now. While we have discussed each of the four tissues as distinct entities, it is clear from our discussions thus far that the tissues of the human body are intricately associated with one another and do not exist in complete isolation from one another. The organs of the human body are made minimally of two tissues or more. Thus, apart from very superficial wounds, most injuries will likely involve multiple tissue types, and therefore, any repair process will depend on a coordinated response of these tissues to restore homeostasis. Restoring homeostasis after a tissue injury involves two related processes, inflammation and regeneration. First, inflammation. The classic signs of inflammation were established by the 1st century Roman encyclopedist, Aulus Cornelius Celsus, in a surviving work called De Medicina. Celsus identified 4 signs of inflammation, which came to be known as the Celsus tetrad. In Latin, the 4 signs are calor, for warmth or heat, rubor, for redness, tumor, for swelling, and dolor, for pain. About 100 years later, the Roman physician Galen of Pergamon added a 5th sign of acute inflammation. Galen added the sign of functio lesa, or loss of function. Inflammation is the body's response to injury to help isolate the damaged tissue and to prevent spread of injury or invading microorganisms from infiltrating and accessing other tissues and organs. Isolating the injury gives the body time to clean up materials, including damaged cells, tissue components, and any invading microorganisms. This phase, which may involve multiple tissues, is called the inflammatory response. Inflammation can be caused by various stimuli, such as impacts against the body, abrasion, puncture wounds, lacerations, chemical irritation, infections, including invasion and presence of pathogens, such as harmful bacteria or viruses, and extreme changes in temperature, whether heat or cold. When any of these stimuli injure tissues, they trigger the inflammatory response by stimulating mast cells. The mast cells release chemicals, namely histamine and heparin. These chemicals increase the permeability of blood vessels to white blood cells and some proteins to allow them to engage pathogens in the infected tissues. As a result, increased blood flow to the injured region makes it red and warm to the touch, and the diffusion of blood plasma causes the injured area to swell. The abnormal tissue conditions and chemicals released by the mast cells also stimulate sensory nerve endings that produce sensations of pain. These local circulatory changes increase the delivery of nutrients, oxygen, phagocytic white blood cells, and blood clotting proteins. They also speed up the removal of waste products and toxins. Over a period of hours and even days, this coordinated response generally eliminates the inflammatory stimulus. In the second phase, following injury, a period of regeneration and repair occurs. During regeneration, fibroblasts produce a dense network of collagen fibers, which result in scar tissue or fibrous tissue. Over time, scar tissue gradually assumes a more normal appearance. Every organ has its own unique tissue organization and composition, and this organization affects its ability to regenerate after injury. Epithelia have excellent regenerative capacities. Most connective tissues, including bone tissue, are also highly regenerative. One supporting connective tissue, namely cartilage, does not regenerate effectively. While skeletal muscles possess myosatellite stem cells, muscle tissue, especially cardiac muscle tissue, has low regenerative capacity. Smooth muscle tissue is an exception here, being more regenerative than skeletal or cardiac muscle tissue. Mature neural tissues regenerate relatively poorly, if at all. Your skin, which is made up mostly of epithelia and connective tissues, regenerates rapidly. We will examine the regeneration of skin in Module 5. In contrast to our skin, damage to the heart is more serious. Although its connective tissue can be repaired, most of the damaged cardiac muscle cells are replaced only by fibrous connective tissue. Such permanent replacement of normal tissues is called fibrosis. Fibrosis may occur in muscles and other tissues in response to injury, disease, and/or aging. In summary, the organs of the body are made of multiple tissues, and all tissues in an organ contribute in unique ways in response to injury. Initial reactions to injury activate an inflammatory response, which isolates the injured tissue to protect other tissues from spread of the injury and potentially infectious agents, and to give time to clean up debris from damaged cells. Some tissues, notably epithelial and connective tissue, are highly regenerative, while muscle and nerve tissue are less capable of repair. Join us in our next lesson as we consider the effects of aging on the tissues of the human body.